and your life. Just
Oh, Praveen is saying it's not there on YouTube yet. Now Praveen can see the stream. Yes. Praveen says go ahead. We can start, Mithil.
are we live?
Yeah, we are. It's not there on YouTube yet.
I can see Arvind's thumbnail.
Oh, Praveen said it's live. He said he can see it and
Now
he said
Praveen
he
can
can see the stream. Yes. Okay. Praveen says go ahead. We can start, Mithil.
Okay. Am I audible? Are we live?
Yeah, we are.
Is there an echo? I just heard an echo. All right. So hello and welcome everyone to today's very special webinar, Ask ID for Himalayan Birds. My name is Mittal Gala and I work with a project called Bird Count India. I'll be your moderator for today and we are so thrilled to have so many of you join us today. So just to give you an overview of the webinar, the first part of this webinar will focus on answering the questions we have collected through the Google form. And we have a panel of experts who will help us with that. And towards the end, we will also take a few questions that come on the live YouTube, which has started. So yes, welcome everyone. And let me quickly set the stage. This webinar is part of the Himalayan Bird Count, a unique event that focuses on the bird species of the majestic mountains. And this count is an initiative by Bird Count India, Bird Conservation Nepal, and Royal Society for Protection of Nature, Bhutan. Participation in this count is very simple. All you need to do is watch and count birds wherever you are, either solo or in a group, for at least 15 minutes. Create a list of birds you can identify and upload them to eBird. And if you need any help or guidance on how to participate, feel free to reach out to the regional coordinators, and the details are mentioned in the Bird Count India website. Let me quickly introduce you to all the panelists. Oh, before that, also a huge shout out to Arvind and Praveen who are helping us with this webinar. Thank you both. So let's start with the panelists. We'll start with Sarabjit. Sarabjit is an independent ornithologist with a focus on long-term ecological monitoring, citizen science, and bird conservation. Over the past decade, she has documented birds across various habitats, contributing regularly to eBird since 2019. Her self-initiated unfunded research emphasizes bird behavior, seasonal movements, and habitat use. Welcome, Sarabjit. We move on to Yubin Shrestha. Yubin is an avid birder and member of Bird Conservation Nepal, leading bird counts and groups around the Kathmandu Valley. He promotes the Chinmeki Chara app for creating bird-friendly urban spaces. He's also a dedicated eBird reviewer and contributes extensively to the platform with a comprehensive checklist for his nationwide explorations. Jenny Maria Kuriakos. Jenny is a renowned bird photographer who transitioned from a career in IT to pursue her passion for full-time birding. Over the past decade, she has captured the essence of bird life in diverse locations, from the mountains of Bhutan to the rainforest of Papua New Guinea and the wetlands of Andaman and Nicobar Islands. Her work has been featured in prestigious exhibitions, publications, and has inspired both photographers and nature enthusiasts. Welcome, Jenny. And Ashwin is associated with Bird Count India and has been watching birds since his childhood. He has traveled a lot in the Himalayas and is one of our go-to bird expert when it comes to bird IDs or bird calls. He enjoys working with large-scale citizen science data. So thanks to all the panelists for agreeing to be a part of this discussion. We have received many interesting questions from birders across the Himalayan region and beyond. We may not be able to take all the questions, but we may take a few of your questions. But if you have more questions or if your questions have not been answered, please type them in the YouTube chat and we will get to them sooner. All right, so let's start with this webinar. So my first question is to Sarabjit. Sarabjit, let's start with the big picture question. Why do you think there are so many bird species in the Himalayas? What makes this region so special for birds with such high diversity?
Okay, so you can see all these beautiful birds from around the Himalaya and everywhere else. So Himalayas are unique in their altitude turnover, adaptive radiation, and the variety of habitats that support these birds. The Himalaya lie at the intersection of two major biogeographic realms, the Palearctic to the north and the Indo-Malayan to the south. Hence, this overlap brings the representation of bird species from both temperate and tropical areas. Secondly, the altitudinal and habitat diversity. From tropical foothills to icy alpine ridges, the elevation ranges from just a few hundred meters to over 6,000 meters above sea level, which creates a wide variety of habitats from lush subtropical forests to alpine meadows. Adding to this, the seasonal migration, especially altitudinal one, brings many birds that breed in higher elevations during summers, like our warblers, but they move down during the winter season. So you see, the area can host a different bird community even during the seasonal changes. This is why the Himalayas are so dynamic, ever changing, where evolution is always at play. So I think this sums up the Himalayas as a bird hotspot because of the various habitats, the altitudinal migration, and also the habitat diversity.
Thanks, Sarabjit. I think I'm already jealous that you live in the lap of the Himalaya to see all these wonderful birds. Okay, so yes, birding in regions with such diverse range of habitats, elevations, and sometimes extreme weather conditions can make finding and identifying certain species quite challenging. And we would love to hear what Yubin has to say. So, Yubin, how do you approach birding across such incredible range of elevations from the Terai grasslands to Kathmandu Valley? Yubin, can you hear us?
Oh,
Yes.
yeah. I've been lucky. I live in Kathmandu Valley, and I've been excessively focusing on the birds of the hilly areas. That's between 1200 to 2700 meters approximately. And the Kathmandu Valley is spread across Kathmandu, Lalitpur, and Bhaktapur districts. And there's a dense forest surrounding the valley. And this hilly area is very diverse in terms of birds. There are overlapping birds species that migrate from the north in the winter and those that migrate from the south in the summer. So far, over 600 birds have been recorded in the valley among the 899 species of birds found in Nepal. And they are mainly forest, farmland, and wetland birds. Some of the best areas of bird watching destinations are Godavari, Fulsoki, Sivapuri, Nagarjun, and Monora River. There are two diverse wetland habitats along the Bagmati River and the Monora River, where we have recorded many rarities in the past. And diverse species of waders, raptors, warblers, flycatchers, pipits, owls, woodpeckers, cuckoos, teats, thrushes, and laughing thrushes are found in these areas. And it's not surprising to find 100 species of birds in a single day in the Kathmandu Valley. And this birding in this area provides an immense opportunity in the Kathmandu Valley alone. From Kathmandu, less than 200 kilometers, we'll be able to reach the lowland in Chitwan, which is one of the most diverse bird species found in Nepal. Likewise, less than 100 kilometers from Kathmandu, we'll be able to reach the mountainous regions of Langtang in Raswa, Nuakot, and Sindhupalchok districts, where we can find all kinds of high altitude species. And I've been mostly traveling to these places to get accustomed to birds of higher and lower elevations. And however, some rarities may be extremely difficult to find since they are only found in particular areas. For example, one might have to travel to the eastern region to find yellow cheek teeth, pale-headed woodpecker, broadbill warbler, Sikkim wedgebill babbler, and rufous-throated rain babbler. Similarly, to see the Himalayan woodpecker, Kashmir nuthatch, tawny-bellied babbler, and finch weaver, we have to travel to the far west. During my exploration in the eastern region of Nepal, this spring alone, I was able to tweet rare species such as purple kochua, white-cheeked starling, eastern fairy bluebird, Baikal bush warbler, and purple rum sunbird. And despite the advantages of birding in Nepal, one of the severe limitations of bird watching is that there are fewer chances of getting used to shorebirds and coastal birds, especially those rare and vagrant ones, since they are only found in particular areas. And lastly, using eBird to set up target species and following the red bird alert, consulting with the local guides, identifying the prime hotspots, and keeping in touch with the birding networks, and teaching and traveling frequently to different areas of the country provides an opportunity to get familiar with a huge number of species. Yeah, thank you.
That's so nice to hear. So it's just not one thing that you have to do. You just don't go to a spot and bird, but you have to do so much of
Yeah, yeah,
other things to keep that birding
yeah.
spirit alive, to have that excitement, curiosity to go to these different places. Thanks, Yubin, for sharing your thoughts. And
Thank you.
My next question is for Jenny. Jenny, you have had the opportunity to photograph some incredible species in Bhutan, including rarities like wardstrogon and blood pheasant. Could you share your experience of photographing these rare birds? What kind of challenges did you face, and what tips do you have for birders or photographers looking to spot and capture such rare species?
Yeah, actually, for the Western Tragopan, it was difficult, very, very difficult in the sense that first time when we tried in the place in the area in Great Himalayan National Park, where several a good number of species existed. We just tried, for about 12 days and trekking up and down, and we couldn't even hear the calls or like a sighting, nothing. So it is very depressing, and not very it's not like level walk, so you have to climb down. So it's physically a bit taxing. So that was there. But my previous experiences with certain other tragopans, like, the Satyr tragopan and the Temmings tragopan and the blights from the Northeast, might have helped me to really kind of expect what could be the behavior of this species. So though it was depressing, I kind of came out with okay, some other birds from the region, and I also thought that, okay, next time maybe I can try. So incidentally, the same year, just after we returned, James Ethan, like one of the best birders from the Southeast Asia, he saw it in Dharangati. So it gave a mental boost, so, okay, yeah, I can try it next year. So this bird really exists, like that. You really need sometimes that push. So fortunately that happened. And the next year again, we tried. And till the 10th day, we could hear it everywhere. And we started the trekking around 3 a.m. to make sure that, okay, the bird might be calling from this area for the roost. They kind of do the night roost in the tree tree, mid-level, I think. So we could hear that. So and then for first day, and then from that time onwards, we are trying. Okay, when it come down from the tree, maybe we can catch it, but it is so elusive. I don't know how it just comes down and disappear. So that was the situation. But anyway, at the towards the end of the day, when I thought, okay, maybe I should stay another week to get some photograph, it fortunately happened. So as I mentioned previously, my experience with other tragopans have really helped me. So of course we have to be quiet, and we have to be very, very, very quiet, in the sense there are other pheasants in the region like monals and also cockless pheasants. So if you walk in, like, the footfall can really cause like rustle of the leaves, and these birds like take off, and the monals and all like sit in the top of the pine trees, so they can see it from anywhere. So that was alerting these birds as well. But finally, we could really get a view, and we were actually in the vantage point. That is one tip probably we can do when we are in Great Himalayan National Park or is in Kashmir. That also I tried, and we got from there as well. So that was even more difficult. So you have to be in like a vantage point where you have a clear idea about the surroundings, and we can see it. So when the bird, like it was a pair, when they came from very low down, we could see it. And we were like kind of with bated breath. And at that time I was using Canon 1DX Mark II camera, and the shutter speed was, the shutter noise was quite a bit, not like the later cameras now we use. That time the noise was quite a bit, and so we could not, I could not take a chance, because I knew that it is coming close. And so I waited till it was in my, the lens, my focal length, where I could get a clear picture. That is how I kind of managed it. But the thing is that you have to be very, very quiet. Another thing is that even if you use playback, you have to be extremely careful. You cannot keep on playing. I always feel that is very counterproductive. So you have to use very bare minimum, so that they to generate a curiosity in them, maybe, so that they know that, oh, somebody is calling, so that I can come and have a look types. So that was it. For the Western Tragopan, it was really difficult. And regarding Bhutan, I must say that it's one of the first birding destination I've ever had in the Himalayas. So that was in 2012. So I was so impressed in the sense that very few people were birding along, and also it was so quiet and so pristine, and you could just walk along the roads, and then you could hear a lot of birds, you could see a lot of birds, and it was like too much activity anywhere which I've been birding. But one of the main targets were the Watch Throgon. I had not seen it in India that time. I tried it in Eagle's Nest, but I could not see it. So when I saw it in Bhutan, that too, like going down in a trail and all that, and here seeing a pink flash somewhere, and then slowly following it without disturbing it. So no calls. We generally, it doesn't work in the way we expect. If you play more calls or something like that. So I had just followed wherever the wing flap or the pink flash was going, I was following it, and I could get a very very good shot using my gear that time. This was later from Ishmi Hills, but the displayed photo. But from Bhutan also, I got a very, very good image. And it was like, I was so happy to see it in that lush forest. Then regarding blood pheasants also, blood pheasants we tried in Chelela first, and it was very foggy. So we could not, get a good photograph or good view. It was like too much, fog, and we could not get a clear view. But then later on in Trumshingla Pass, just after crossing the Trumshimla, the Pelela Pass, I could see some 20, 30 of them, here, there. I mean, I just a few days back, I posted a picture in Instagram also coming from the, that habitat, just showing the head and all that. It was awesome. So that was unforgettable experience. So I feel that, that time, almost all these birds, they were like, even though we missed at certain places in Bhutan, we could see at certain places, even the satire Tragopan for that matter. So we missed at certain places, but then there was a place where the guide took us, and it was like a field, open, not field, meadow. And there was like a kind of blind. And that was a foggy time, foggy and misty. But then, that feel of the Tragopan emerging, then it is just pecking like the small shoots and leaves and all that. So it was very unexplainable, inexplicable kind of a feel. So that was my first sighting for the satire Tragopan as well. So yeah, altogether, it was really, really good. And a lot of small birds, especially the laughing thrushes, the sunbirds, all of them were very new to me, like Mrs. Gold sunbirds and all. That was something like so kind of plethora of colorful birds. So I really enjoyed my birding in Bhutan. Yeah.
Thanks, Jenny. What amazing stories.
Yeah, thanks.
Amazing stories you have. I'm already getting goosebumps, and I can't imagine the adrenaline rush you would have got. And all that rush of spotting rare species makes all the tough conditions, all the challenges worthwhile. So now let's talk about, oh yes, before we move on to the questions, I would request Arvind to show us some lovely photos of what Jenny has clicked of the Tragopan and the blood pheasant. Arvind, could you show us the next slide? What a beautiful bird. Amazing. Congratulations, Jenny, for such a lovely sighting. So now let's talk about one of the trickiest groups, warblers. So Ashish Ariel from Gandaki province in Nepal has asked us, I usually get confused in identifying warblers. What might be the key considerations for their identification? Thanks, Ariel, for that question. And you're not alone. A lot of birders have asked this similar question of how confusing it can be to identify warblers, especially in the Himalaya. So let's start with Ashwin. Ashwin, could you tell us some key things to look for when trying to identify Himalayan warblers?
Thanks, Mittal. And it was wonderful to listen to the rest of you so far. So I enjoyed it so far. Warblers, as Mittal said, there was a questionnaire that was put out, a form that was put out to people. And a large number of people came back saying that they wanted some tips on IDing warblers. And I always maintain that actually warblers are easier than many other groups of birds because there are certain rules that you can follow while identifying them. So I won't tell you which warbler this is. You can say in comments which one this is. And I'll move to, can you move to the next slide? Okay. So there are some key features that are useful in identifying warblers. So we start off with wing bars. So conveniently, some warblers have wing bars and some warblers don't have wing bars. So that's really, really important to know and remember. Most of these are found in the Himalaya. Are common in the Himalaya. Tickle's leaf warbler, sulphur-bellied warbler, titler's leaf warbler, grey-hooded warbler, chiffchaff, dusky warbler, smoky warbler, and unfortunately, greenish warbler can also sometimes not show wing bars. But greenish warbler mostly does show wing bars, and all of the ones that are there on under the yes show wing bars. So this is a really useful thing to remember. I won't get into which ones have one wing bar and which ones have two wing bars. That's another nuance to look at later, but just remember this. Next slide. The second important feature to look at is the crown stripe. Not every warbler has a crown stripe, but a number of them do. So all the ones in red here, I apologize to those who are colorblind. I hope there's some difference in shade. But humes, lemon-rumped, buff-barred, ashy-throated, blithe-leaf, western-crowned, chestnut-crowned, and whistlers typically show wing buzz. Gray-hooded warbler also shows wing buzz. So you see the among the warblers that have wing bars absent, only gray-hooded, shows a crown stripe. Next, then the third important feature are white tertial tips. So tertials are these feathers that are next to the rump. You see the ones that are right next to the rump, and in this wobbler, they have whitish edges, those feathers, and these are called the tertials, and only some wobblers have white tertial edges out of the ones that we're discussing. And here you see that humes, lemon rump, buffbird, and ashy-throated. These are the only ones that have white tertial tips. So let's stay on this slide. One thing to notice here is only wobblers that have wing bars have white tertial edges. Of those, you can separate them. So if it has white tertial edges, it's these. If it doesn't have white tertial edges, then you have a few options. Now, between those options, there are other features that you can look at, that you can get into, but this helps you narrow it down greatly. Beyond this, there are many things like color, behavior, many things that make these wobblers a little unique. But I think this is a really important first step. Now, the wobbler that we have on the screen here is the same as the wobbler that was there on the first slide. Now, look at the key here and see whether you're able to narrow this wobbler down at least. And there's another important hint in the name that will help you ID it. There's lots more that we can do with identifying these wobblers visually. And there is a webinar that was done previously that's there on the Bird Count India YouTube channel that has a lot more details. Do take a look at it. It's called Himalayan Warblers, Identification of Himalayan Warblers, or something of the sort. And there you'll get much more and many quiz questions about Warbler ID. But now there's another very, very important aspect to identifying these wobblers. That is their sounds. And many of them may sound similar, but Yubin will tell us a very interesting way to identify these wobblers by sound.
Thanks, Ashwin, and thanks for these useful tips. And I suppose with your tips and the behavior, the habitat, how they look in the field, I think with all these things, if we pay more attention, the more we'll get better at it. So thanks so much. So as Ashwin said, Yubin, the next question that we have got, actually quite a few people have asked this question. So Ashim Biswas from Uttarakhand has asked, what are the key field marks and vocalization differences used to identify and differentiate warbler species in the Himalaya, especially among similar looking species? So Yubin, would you like to talk about what process you follow when it comes to identifying warblers by call?
Yeah, sure. I'll try. And thank you, Ashwin, for the insights. It's been very useful. And okay, here's our first slide. Uh, uh, yeah, understanding the vocalizations has always been a difficult task for me, and I'm just trying to keep it as simple as possible. And this, I'm just trying to present few examples by briefly comparing the sonograms of few selected warblers from the Himalayas and demonstrating how the live recording on Merlin app is useful in identifying similar looking warblers with similar calls. In our first slide, we can see here's a comparison between Hume's warbler and yellow-browed warbler. And most of the time, warblers are perched high in the canopy, making it difficult to get good visuals, and they can only be heard. Humes and yellow-browed warblers may look similar, and both of them have a two-syllable call. Hume's warbler has a falling pitch, as you can see in the picture, a small gap in between, and a higher pitch than the first note. And it has got a sparrow-like chirp call, and visually you can see the pattern is completely different from the yellow-browed warbler. And according to the birds of the world, The first syllable of the yellow-browed warbler is steeply descending. It's descending at first and then steeply ascending. As you can see, there's a rise and fall of the pitch. The pattern of the call is well pronounced and quite distinct on the sonogram. And I always keep this V shape in my mind to memorize this pattern. And once you get used to identifying it on the sonogram, you'll always get it right. You'll never get it wrong. And next slide, please. Yeah, greenish and green warbler. Similarly, it might be difficult to distinguish green from greenish warbler. Merlin defines greenish warbler as having a two-parted call with flat or downward stress. And greenish warbler also sounds similar to a Hume's warbler, but it is much louder and harsher. And green warbler has a complex syllabus with rising and falling pitch. According to Merlin, green warbler is best identified by its loud, fast, three-syllabic call. And in the field, it might be hard to confirm whether it has two syllables or three, but it has a distinct pattern on the sonogram. And we move on to the next slide. And here's a short comparison of sonograms of buff-barred warbler and acid-throated warbler. Similar calls of buff-barred warbler and acid-throated warblers are visually different on the sonogram. As you can see, the call of the buff-barred warbler is much like a backslash, and the call of the acid-throated warbler is more like a forward slash. So you'll hear these calls in the higher altitudes a lot of the time. And actually, this is actually wintering calls, mostly used during the winters. And can you go to the final slide? And finally, here are some easy to memorize trilling songs of Hume's warbler, lemon rump warbler, and buff-barred warbler. And Hume's warbler, according to Merlin, the song of a Hume's warbler is a remarkable descending insect-like buzz. It has a short and fast trill than the lemon rump warbler and buff-barred warbler. And lemon rump warbler, on the other hand, starts with a fast trill, followed by a lower pitch with descending rattling trill. And the buff-barred warbler, according to the birds of the world, the primary song consists of two components, the trill and the rattle parts, given as one continuous complex song without any fixed arrangement. You can see the rising intensity on the sonogram. And what I was trying to say is that you see in the first picture of Hume's, it's trill, fast and short. Second, in the second image, you can see it's fast in the beginning and gets slower. And in the third, you can see that buff-barred, it's a long trill. And okay, and yes, and it's not only applied for warblers, but you can also use this technique to verify diverse species of birds during bird watching. And thank you all. That's all I have to say.
Thanks, Yubin. That's such an excellent tip that you gave. And I am sure quite a lot of birders would find it useful because we are not just used to looking at these signatures in the spectrogram. So it's a very useful tip, and thanks for sharing that. So moving on to our next questions, Deepa Mohan from Bangalore has asked, finches often partially seen and not well heard are very confusing. I want to learn a little bit about distinguishing between them. And similarly, Barani Dharan from Pondicherry has also asked about the numerous finches in the Himalaya and how to identify. That's such a good question, and you're not the only one. A bunch of birders have asked similar things, and honestly, I think we need a full session just on finch ID at some point. But for now, let's bring in Sarabjit to shed some light. So Sarab, the Himalayas host a remarkable diversity of finches, rose finches, gold finches, mountain finches, green finches. Why are there so many finches there? And as a follow-up question, could you walk us through two such examples where female of similar looking species, how to tell them apart?
Right. Thank you for the questions. I think I too at some point will will face difficulty in identifying two female rose finches, for example. But yeah, I think along the Himalaya we find brilliant rose finches to bold green finches, scarlet finch, gold finches. And I think these seed-loving songbirds utilize the altitude gradient that allows them to specialize at different bands. So some of these rose finches may be nesting above 3,000 meters, say, and the others might be foraging in riverine thickets far below at, say, 200-meter elevation or 500-meter elevation. But yes, I think altitude gradient is one of the major things to look at while looking out for the finches. Secondly, the region's diverse flora, including seed-rich shrubs, berries, and conifers, offers these finches abundant food year-round. So I think the feeding gills, looking at the feeding gills of these rose finches or green finches can also allow us to, segregate some of the finch species to the other. So I think this is one of the reasons why Himalaya is accommodating all these finches. Despite their subtle plumage differences, each has its own elevation preferences. So I'll be taking up two examples. One is of Himalayan white-browed rosefinch, and the other is pink-browed rosefinch that have similar presence along the Himalaya, from Kashmir, Ladakh through Jammu, Himachal, Uttarakhand, North Bengal, Sikkim, and of course, the West Arunachal. So they both share their segregation at one point or the other. Coming to the two females of these two particular species, I think if we look at the pictures on the left, which shows the Himalayan white-browed rosefinch, we can clearly see that the supercilium is much more broader and creamy in color, with respect to the right image, which shows a thin pale yellow supercilium. If you notice that this particular image on the left, the supercilium is ending and becomes whiter on the side of the nape. I hope you are all able to see that the left image, the supercilium is white towards the nape end, whereas in the right image, the supercilium is not ending in white. So this is one of the key characters, I think, that will help us to identify these two finches from one another, the females. The second thing which is very clear to me is the left image, the Himalayan white-browed rosefinch. The chin and throat, which extends to the pectoral side, which is normally the breast part, is a bit rusty buff in color. Whereas in the right image, pink-browed rosefinch, it's more uniform in color. It's more buffy brown. It's not, it's not standing out with the underparts. So I think second could be this particular part, and you can clearly see the rump of the Himalayan white-browed rosefinch, which is completely yellow and is heavily streaked. And I'm sure, because I've seen pink-browed rosefinch, the rump is not yellow and it's not heavily streaked. So I think some of you might have seen the rump of pink-browed rosefinch, which is definitely not heavily streaked and yellow like the Himalayan white-browed rosefinch. So these are very subtle differences, yet they're occupying the same gradients but utilizing the different habitats within the same elevation gradient. I hope this kind of helps out in identifying. I don't know whether I am very clear or not, because until and unless we see the species out there in the field, it becomes very difficult. But yeah, I think after clicking a photograph, we can easily sit and look at these subtle differences.
Thanks, Sarav. That's very interesting how you talked about the elevation that they use, the places where they overlap. Ashwin, would you like to add something to this?
So just, reiterating what Sarabjit said, in addition to all the plumage differences, distribution and elevation is extremely important. And white-browed rosefinch is a much higher elevation species than pink-browed rosefinch that occurs across elevations. So that's just something to keep in mind. look at plumage features, but also look at distribution and see what is expected where you are.
Thanks both of you. That was super helpful. I think a lot of us tend to just pause or stop at just taking photos, but your tips really shows how much more we can use. We can use our mind to think about all the other aspects and not just the plumage or the features in the bird. So thanks both of you. We have a question from Somik Ghosh from West Bengal. He says at Singalila, a huge hunting flock, mixed species flock was there, but I wasn't able to focus on identifying them. It was very confusing. How do you identify birds in such a flock? This is such a relatable question, and many birders, especially in forested areas like Singhalalia, yeah, including a lot of us who have birded in the Himalayas or in Western Ghats, have come across what's often called a bird wave or a mixed species flock or a hunting flock. So it's when different species move together in a burst of activity, feeding, calling, moving quickly. And it can be really overwhelming to figure out who's who. So Jenny, could you walk us through how one might approach identifying birds in a mixed species flock like this? And any tips or things that you follow?
Hi. Yes. Thanks, Mithil. Yes. See, this is like so relatable, when this question is asked, because I remember my first birding trip in Sikkim, like with Garima and all that. We were a group of people, and it was like a frenzy of activity, and we didn't know, and we were all new to the Himalayan birds. So we had all our camera, and we started clicking, because that time everything was new for us, even the warblers. So all these things come together, like sunbirds, flower pickers, tree creepers, fulvetas, then the shrike babblers, the barwings. There are a lot of them, and we just, we don't know what to click and what to identify. So what method I followed, from that time onwards, is like, click. And whatever you can identify in the spot. Of course, later, like after one trip, then probably like experience is key also, right? In the field, the more you bird, the more you are comfortable with the idea of the birds. So initially I started like that, and then I know from my mind I can filter out, say for example minlas, I can filter out, okay, this is blue winged, I can see it, and it's very clear, right? Red tail minla, chestnut tailed minla, and all that. So that we can filter it out, and then we can focus on the birds which are not that colorful, and we are confused. So the more we are confused, I think the better you should get more pictures and more angles. And of course, if you are with a naturalist or a guide, then they can also help you, because before that itself you can share that, okay, I have not seen Hume's tree creeper, so if it is with a rusty flanked tree creeper, can you tell Hawkson's tree creeper rather, so if can you just tell me like when it comes. So they will also help you. So use your available resources, your friends, whatever tips they have given. And sometimes you just say, Janie, look at that is the one probably you want. Your co-birders, your friends all help you. So this is a practice which I think I myself follow till now, because I am still having problems with the warblers. So especially like so much of warblers come together, you just click it, and then later on come and try to ID, like with lot of books, and if still not possible to ID, shoot at people like Ashwin, or like earlier I used to really trouble AMS, Abhijit Menonson. And when I started birding, then he was one of the persons who used to ID warblers a lot for me. So it used to happen like that. But then now also, like you get confused. And also call is another thing which we can. So nuthatches, they have a particular call, and the tree creepers, they have a different call. So if you have, you don't have to know which exact tree creeper is calling, but probably if you know the tree creeper is calling and you need a tree creeper, then probably you can take a picture of that. So, for me, it is all clicking everywhere, and finally, once I come back and then say, oh, I got this. Oh, it was there in the flock. Is it like that? So this is what I do. And probably it is not humanly possible. Like, if you are not an expert, you cannot. Otherwise, you have to be just with the binocular. Then also it might not be possible because they flipped a lot. So probably the better thing is that, to just try to get a picture. Not always possible, but whenever possible, try to click, especially the confused species. The more angles you have, the more, you are, better with the ID. So that is what I follow. And probably it works for many people. I don't know. And also, if you are familiar with the calls, there is nothing like it. And I am weak with warbler calls, so I don't know. Like Yubin was mentioning, this note, this trill, it is all same for me. So unless and until they are very distinguishable warblers, it's very difficult for me. Chestnut crowned we can identify, rufous faced we can identify very, very fast. Ashy throated to some extent, but all this green colored, yellow colored, it's still a problem for me. So, that is how I go about it. I think probably, that can be practiced, maybe. That's it from my end.
Thanks, Jenny. I think some of the tips that you gave are very useful. One is to, yes, of course, camera helps, and also to ask help for the co-birders. So all of you, if you know what you have to look at, and if there is a flock, some of you look at this, some people identify it for you. And I think that's what I also follow when I have gone with friends. One of them has been a photographer. So while some of us are looking through binocs, trying to focus on some very easily recognizable species, the warblers or the unidentified birds are, friends take photos, and that's how then we sit together and we find out what we have seen. So that's really nice. And of course, call helps. And like you said, over experiences. I think over experience, the more you go, the more mixed species you encounter, the more better you get at it. So thanks again. And since we were talking about bird calls, our next question is from Thinley Wangchung from Bhutan. And they have asked that bird calls have confused me. And how do they start with identifying bird calls? So thanks, Thinley. This question is very much needed for all of us who are yet to learn identifying birds by call. So Ashwin, I know you have spent a lot of time learning bird calls in the field. And initially, when you started, did you face the same confusion? How did you go about learning them? And do you have any recommendation for new birders or birders who are yet to get that knack of identifying birds by call, especially in the Himalayan regions?
Thanks, Mithal. Yeah, so I would agree with the general sentiment that learning bird calls is extremely difficult. It takes a lot of time. But I think there's one key practice that really helps. So in the beginning, it took me many years to start getting familiar with bird calls. But then at one point, I started trying to find every single bird that I was hearing. And anything that I hear, even if it takes me an hour, 2 hours, I would just go and try and find that bird and locate the source of that sound. 60-70% of the time, you can't locate the source of the sound. But when you do locate the source of the sound and you see that bird making that vocalization, that really clicks. And then when that happens many times, that really, really makes an impression, and suddenly everything starts making sense. And I really feel there is a time where suddenly it all makes sense. And like Jenny said, suddenly you can say this is a tree creeper, this is a nuthatch, this is a warbler. Even if there are fine differences that determine which warbler or finch it is, which we cannot tell, we can put it in that group, and then we can investigate further. But just going and trying to find every single bird, taking recordings, getting them identified from people who are willing to help, all of these factors really help getting us used to bird sounds. And I think the other thing is to just do a lot of birding. That really again helps.
And does Merlin help you? Do you
Oh
use
yes,
Merlin?
yes, yes. And actually, I should come back to something that that Eubin spoke about. All of the spectrograms that Eubin showed, it doesn't require any fancy tool or recordings to really be able to look at that nowadays. You can actually open Merlin Sound ID, and if you're listening to a bird call, if a bird is calling, you can see the spectrograms live. And that's so useful. You hear a warbler calling, you look at the spectrogram live, you open it, and then whether I'll come to whether Merlin can identify it or not next. But by seeing the spectrogram live, you'll be able to see whether it's a V, which is yellow-browed warbler, or it's this descending note and a bit of a upper note, which would be Hume's warbler. And these differences you can make out looking at the spectrogram and understanding the spectrogram. For many people that I've also met, they're actually very comfortable with visual ID of sound. So that is something that people can become very good at. I'm not very good at that, and I still haven't got used to visual ID of sound. But some people become extremely good at visual ID of sound. So I suggest you all try that. Open Merlin Sound ID, see what patterns are forming when a bird is calling or singing, and that can be really useful. Even if the sound is difficult to match, very soon you might be able to start matching the pattern that it is making. About Merlin Sound ID itself, it's a growing tool in that it is becoming better and better as we go along, trained by all of the observations and all of the sound recordings that all of us upload on eBird. And as there are more sound recordings that are of various quality, Merlin becomes better and better at identifying birds. So it's still some distance away where the likelihood of identifying correctly becomes closer to 100%. But at the moment, you can use it as an indication. Do not use it as confirmation. If you see that Merlin suggests a particular bird, then that means that now the responsibility is on you to go and confirm that. You cannot take that as the ID. Because of course we know all of the sound around us. There is so much variation that the birds can make. Merlin can easily be misled. So you need to take that suggestion and go and find the bird, and then confirm that it's that species. So that's a really important process of feedback. Upload more recordings, Merlin will become better and better. So Merlin is extremely useful, a useful tool, but use it with caution and use it in the way it's supposed to be used. Let it indicate what is there so that you can find the bird.
Thanks, Ashwin. And as Ashwin said that, Merlin gets trained with the recordings that we put on our eBird checklist. So here's a request to all of you who are listening in that do contribute to sound recordings so that Merlin can use those recordings to train itself. And that brings us to the end of questions we received through the Google form. However, there is one last question, and this again is for Ashwin. A lot of birders, especially in the mountains, spot a flycatcher with rufous in the tail and assume it's a rusty-tailed flycatcher. But we know it's not always that simple. So how do you go about telling apart female flycatchers of various species or even red stars that show some rufous on the tail?
So yeah, let's stay with this slide. And I still maintain that female flycatchers are extremely difficult. In a way, I feel they are more difficult than warblers also, because so many of them can be drab and brown with rufous tails. So what you see on the screen here are 7 different species. These are 7 different species that are a little bit brownish and grayish and have a little bit of rufous on the tail. Please guess in comments on YouTube which each of these are. Starting from left to right, upper panel and lower panel. Left to right, make your guesses. One of these may be a rusty tail flycatcher. Let's see if you're able to guess that right. But how do you identify all of these flycatchers that have rufous tails? So there are other features to look at. For example, bill color. Bill color and shape is a very useful feature. Also, the way the bird is sitting and its structure. Flycatchers, redstarts, bush chats, they tend to have slightly different structures and different ways of sitting. That's another useful thing to look at. And maybe once we look at the ID, I'll give you another couple of seconds to guess. And once after that, we can move to the next slide where I tell you what each of these are. Right. So, did anybody get all of these correct? So the third one from the left is indeed a rusty tail flycatcher. I think now when you see the right ID, it becomes very clear that this is actually the only one here with a pale bill, right? All the others have dark bills. So most flycatchers with rufous on the tail tend to have dark bills, except rusty tail flycatcher. Rusty tail flycatcher also has the distinction of being the only one here where the males and females look similar with rusty tails. And all of the other males look completely different and are much, much easier to ID. So you see that there's a red start in here. There's also a bush chat in here. Red starts, they often sit on the ground, they wag their tails, they tend to sit a bit upright. That is a typical feature of red starts. Whereas flycatchers often tend to sit on a perch and sally. They do come on the ground as well, but they don't typically sit upright. Tails are a bit cocked up usually. And the bush chat, you can see it's a little bit, tail looks like it's loosely hanging and it's a bit top heavy. So I'm going by structure, but if you look at these photos for a little longer, you'll find other things that you can look at. Blue-throated flycatcher females have a bit of yellowish brown on the breast. Little pied flycatcher tends to be a little grayer than all of the others with a wing bar. So these features you will figure out if you take a look at many of these photos. The first thing to remember is that there are ways to tell these apart. And if you spend some time with each of these photos of these female flycatchers, you will start becoming a little more familiar with all of them. Rufous-bellied niltava, you can see, also has a bit of white on the throat and sometimes even a bit of a bluish tinge, the female on the shoulder. So that's another way to tell that one apart. And next slide. And again, we come back to distribution. So everything makes much more sense in the context of distributions and probabilities. I think I mean, I'm going to make up a percentage here, but I think 70 or 80% of the job is done if you are already aware of which birds are likely in an area. Because now there's so much information available. If I go to the Eastern Himalaya and I expect a rusty-tailed flycatcher and Western Himalayan birds, my job becomes so much more difficult because I'm not dealing with 400 species to identify. I'm dealing with a pool of 700 species to tell birds apart from. Also summer and winter. Now, if I go to the Western Himalaya, and in December, and I have birds like rusty-tailed flycatcher in my mind as birds that are likely there. Once again, my job is becoming much harder because I'm not looking at probabilities. Rusty-tailed flycatcher is a summer visitor to the Western Himalaya, does not occur in the Eastern Himalaya, and winters in the Western Ghats and some parts of the Eastern Ghats. So this kind of information becomes extremely useful, even site level information of what is likely at different elevations. All of that becomes really useful in narrowing this pool down and making it a little easier to identify. Even female flycatchers, all of them have their elevations where they're found, certain habitats that they like. All of that understanding will make the job much easier. So that's all about this. And if you have any more questions about flycatchers, warblers, or anything else we spoke about, please ask on YouTube.
Thanks, Ashwin. That brings us to the end of the questions we received from the Google form. And thank you everyone who sent those in. We'll now take a couple of questions from those watching live on YouTube. So Ashwin, there is one question which has come from YouTube, and it says, this is from Purna Biram. I assume most of us birders agree that we need a webinar series for Himalayan raptor identification. Can the panelists organize a webinar only on Himalayan raptors as a follow-up some other way? Would you think it's useful?
I think that can be done. There are some people who are extremely good with raptors, not me. I think Yuban has a lot of experience with raptors, but there are also many other people who are very, very good with raptors. So maybe thanks for the suggestion. We can pull together some raptor experts and do a Himalayan or general in like South Asia subcontinent wide raptor identification session.
Thanks, Ashwin. Yeah, I think that would be really useful. We did not take, because we had so many questions coming in, we did not take all of the questions, but yes, a lot of you have asked us how to identify raptors while soaring. And yeah, we'll wait for some more questions if there are any questions from the YouTube live. If not, we will probably ask Ashwin or Yubin to talk about raptors. Okay, so we have question from Nisha Nayak. Some birds also mimic other birds, so how would I be sure of it? In the context of Himalayan birds, what do you have to say? Anyone?
Does anyone want to take this? I can start it off, and maybe we can all give our ideas of how we go about it. Thanks for the question. It's an excellent one, and Himalaya and is notorious for having birds that mimic other birds. And the worst mimic of all, according to me, is orange-bellied leafbird. It can sound like anything and creates a lot of confusion. So it's really difficult. You have to find the source of the bird, but there's small giveaways sometimes they have that they do something different from the bird that they are mimicking. So maybe you can look for that. Anybody else for tips on how to?
Yeah, I would like to say a few things. Yeah, we also hear a lot of mimicking calls, especially in the summer also. This acid drongos and they have copying other bird calls and trying to scare us. Last time there was a bronze drongo, it was nesting, and and I was that leading the bird group and of Bishan, and then I was like, there's a spotted owlet, and actually it was not spotted owlet, it was a bronze drongo. And so and yeah, sometimes it can be mistaken, but this mimicking call, it usually doesn't happen all the time. And like birds, like many birds mimic, just like oriental magpie robins, and even and common green magpie also mimics a lot. And it creates sounds of mostly it mimics crested serpent eagle and chestnut wing cuckoo. If you hear that crested serpent eagle in unusual place in very dense forest, then you might have to be aware of that. And yes, but one thing related to this mimicking is that when they are mimicking these calls, suppose if a common green magpie is actually very good. It's a very good mimic, but I meant to say that. Uh, Most of the time when other bird mimics that those calls, they are not crystallized. It's like a plastic call, it's like practice call only, and it's not similar to the exact species. For example, even the call of this uh, common green magpie, it doesn't sound exactly like the crested serpent eagle. There's a little bit difference. Maybe I've not compared this in sonogram, but maybe you can find those difference also. Thank you.
Thanks, Yubin. I remember an incident where there was a time a few years ago, we were reviewing we were looking at some calls of Indian cuckoo in winter. And we were very surprised, both Ashwin and I, and it started a discussion that why would an Indian cuckoo make calls in winter? And then Ashwin just hypothetically said, could it be a mimic, a greater rat-tailed drongo? Because this was central Indian forest, tiger forest and all. And then we asked a few birders, and then a couple of them did reach back, and they did say that they did see rat-tailed drongo mimicking Indian cuckoo. So this mimics are amazing. It always throws us off when you are least expecting something. So I do not have a few questions. Actually, there could be a bit of lag, and we are still waiting for one last question from YouTube. But by that time the question comes, let me ask one more question. And yes, so again, this question is, how do you identify bush-dwelling birds that don't come out but are heard calling? Anyone wants to take this question?
I think the habitat again plays a role. There are certain types of habitat where you can find 5 or 6 species of bush warblers together, and I've had the chance to, see this inside the Wildlife Institute of India campus. So we have 6 bush warblers there, uh, all together in the grassland area also, and also in the swamp stage within the forest that is growing up. So I think the main thing is to see which species lives in the open and which species. Sometimes they do come out, and also the calls are very different from one another. I think we can make sure to record these calls if we are not able to see the bird, and note down the habitat parameters where we think these species are calling from, because these bush warblers also utilize a different strata for vocalizing. Like West Himalayan bush warbler will come up and perch on a grass blade openly and vocalize. So, and if you talk about chestnut crown bush warbler or gray-sided bush warbler, they'll always be within the vegetation on the ground and they won't come out, but still be continuous calling. So you can record these calls, note down the habitat parameters they're calling in, and I think these two things can really help you figure out which bush warbler we are looking at. And again, coming back to the signature read on the spectrogram, which helps, definitely helps. I've used it for blitz reed warbler and other reed warblers, and also for the bush warblers. So I think, yes, these two things are really important as they have helped me identify different bush warblers. You can add on if you have anything like from your experience or anything.
Yes, please do if anyone has to.
I really nothing to add to that. That was
Yes,
perfect.
yeah. So I think it's time for us to wrap up. So thanks to everyone who joined us today and shared questions, whether through the form or in the live chat. And a big thank you to our panelists for taking the time to walk us through some of these tricky ID challenges, stories from the field, your own experiences on what has helped you to identify certain difficult birds. So for all the viewers, if your question wasn't answered, do leave it in the comments. We will try our best to respond later. And hope you all are inspired to go out to bird more, enjoy the Himalaya in your own way. And please try your best to participate on 10th May. Try to go birding. It can even be from your balcony, from your rooftop, taking a walk, and do contribute towards citizen science initiative, the Himalayan bird count. For those who are not in the Himalayas, on the same day, there is also endemic bird day. So whatever bird list that you upload on eBird will automatically counted towards endemic bird day, global big day, and for the Himalayan regions, it will be contributed towards the Himalayan bird count. So thanks once again to all of you. Thanks Jenny, thanks Saramjit, thanks Yubin, thanks Ashwin and Praveen and Arvind. Thank you so much. And hopefully we'll bring another webinar soon.
Thank you.
Thank you. Bye. Have a good weekend, all of you.
Thank you, Mittal.
Bye.